Well, I would like to call to order today's meeting of the Public Safety Planning Human Services Personnel Committee. I would like to acknowledge that the chair for the committee, Neil, is out today, and so I will be stepping into chair today's meeting as we normally do. I would prefer that we use first names if at all possible, unless there is an objection. Hearing none, I'd like to move to the first agenda, which is committee business, specifically number 1, committee updates. And I believe that Chair Tibbet, Councilmember Tibbet had asked.
Oh no, did I just fall off?
I think Councilmember Eck froze.
Yeah.
Did I freeze?
Yeah, you froze.
I don't see Chief Bennett. So Susan McLaughlin, do you have an update for us? Oh, wait a minute. Chief Bennett is here. Chief, I'm sorry. I almost skipped you.
So I tried to promote Chief Bennett. She did not accept, and she has her hands raised, and so I'm asking her to unmute.
Chief Bennett, you're recognized.
Can you guys hear me at all?
Now we can.
Can you guys
Yes.
hear me at all?
Yes.
We have a feedback loop with you.
How about we, Director McLaughlin, Susan, how about we go to you first, and then we can always go back to Chief Bennett.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so I am here to update on the comprehensive plan. And this is really intended to keep council apprised of what we're doing in the interim when we're not at council, so that you're in the loop as some of these topics that will be coming to you in the very short term. So first, I'll talk about current tasks that we're working on. Staff in partnership with the consultant team is drafting, reviewing, editing versions of each of the goals and policies contained within all of the elements of the existing comprehensive plan. 2 of those elements, the housing and land use elements, are currently being discussed with the planning board and through the development of 2 subcommittees. Those subcommittees will report back to the full board at their July 24th meeting, so that's next week. And then final revisions we made to those elements prior to the inclusion kind of in the plan's consolidation, right? So, you know, I keep cautioning the planning board, these are being seen a little bit in isolation, and it's, you know, it'll be beneficial to have the whole plan kind of come together to round out the policy and goals contained throughout. Let's see, staff and the consultant team are also actively conducting kind of the second round of internal review for elements such as community design, sustainability, and capital facilities. We met with the mayor last week with a consultant team to discuss kind of preferences and priorities for the capital facilities plan. And we'll be really coordinating with each of the directors and the departments to make sure that the goals and policies are up to date and in alignment with the mayor's direction. And then additionally, staff is working with AHA, what is it? Alliance for Affordability. I always get those A's mixed up. With Chris Collier with AHA on really reviewing our existing MFTE program, making it sure it's in alignment with best practice and looking for any gaps or opportunities to update the MFTE policies within the comp plan. So, so that's also in progress at the moment. Also, and not a small task, is we will be getting the DEIS shortly. Herrera, which is a sub-consultant of VIA, who's our prime on the comprehensive plan, will be submitting the preliminary impacts and mitigation measures for internal review. So we have not received that yet. It was tentatively scheduled to be on planning board next week, but the delay in those deliverables make me question whether that will be ready. And so I cannot make that decision today. But planning board is standing by for that decision. Recent public outreach events, we hosted a HB 1110 middle housing webinar that really covered what the House bill requires, what the city options are in shaping the legislation, what are the consequences of not adopting the legislation by July of 2025, and a raft of other issues. That is available online and on Everyone's Edmonds webpage. Please take a look if you're interested. A lot of good information in there. That work is supported by a grant, so that's always nice to mention that we have financial support to do this body of work. Other aspects of outreach, we are preparing for an online open house for the waterfront vision. As you may recall, we did 2 design charrettes and a follow-up for the waterfront vision workshop at the Waterfront Center. So all this will be culminated in the draft waterfront vision, which is also including goals and policies. So the online open house for that body of work is early to mid-August. So that's coming up. And then also coming up for an online open house. And this is will be up for a while, but it starts at the end of August, which is our DEIS, and then the compilation of our draft plan elements. So that'll be launched to the public at the end of August. That'll be open for about a required 20-day comment period, but we will likely keep it up longer. We'll likely have it up to 30 days minimum. And then finally, at the end of August, once the DEIS is published, staff is planning to host a webinar to review each of the document sections and explain the potential findings in that document. So that is meant to really be a resource for the community who may not be apprised of what a DEIS is and all it contains. Yes.
Vivian, do you have a question?
Yes, when you were mentioning the comment period, what were you referring to it for the DEIS, or was that the waterfront, or?
No, it's the DEIS. We have a required public comment period for a DEIS, and that's 20 days. But like I said, we will likely keep that online open house open for 30 at minimum.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew what that was connected to. Thank you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then we've been out and about at boards and commissions. So we've been at planning board last week on and 2 weeks prior to that on the housing and land use goals and policies. Like I said, a subcommittee was formed for them to spend more time on those elements. Those are still in very draft form, and staff is not completed their review yet either. So we keep telling planning board that this is a work in progress, but all of their comments are valuable. And we will not put out a final draft until that subcommittee is happy with the content. Let's see, we went to the historic preservation as well, and we discussed certain aspects of historic preservation that currently fall within our existing comp plan and suggested changes to that. So that was a good meeting. We also went to the ADB briefly and unbeknownst to me. So that was for those of you who were as part of an email chain, they were not pleased with the community design element. And quite frankly, as I mentioned in that email chain, neither was I. I was not aware that had gone out to the ADB. So that element, community design, is definitely not ready for public consumption. But I apologize to the ADB for their time because it was not time well spent. And so what else is next? Again, the planning board, I think I already said I already mentioned the DEIS will be in July or early August. And then For city council, we are proposing a joint planning board city council study session on August 6th. The topic of that would be to discuss the preliminary DEIS impacts, along with the planning board's recommendation on the land use and housing elements. So really important, will be really, important to get materials in advance to you, so that we can have a really productive meeting. Because that'll be a kind of some meaty subject matters. So looking forward to that, and that'll kind of be the kickoff in a way to some substantive bodies of work at council and planning board between now and the end of the year.
Thank you, Susan. That's quite an update. I have a couple questions. Vivian, go ahead.
You can go first if you want.
Well,
I was really just going to say that I was thrilled to hear that we'd be getting the materials in advance of that meeting, and be able to have a really good conversation there. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, it's been a challenge getting the materials from the consultant in time for the staff to review them, to get them edited, to get them to a place we're happy with and back out. So it's, we're doing the absolute best we can in getting some of this material to boards and certainly to council with enough time, but.
well, and I appreciate this fairly detailed status update. It's very helpful and holistic. I too appreciate getting materials. I'm really looking forward to the joint council planning board meeting. I just really love those opportunities and any more that we might have moving forward. My question is back, not to pick on this too much, but the ADB meeting, I just want to clarify for those who might be listening.
Yeah.
It sounds like information got sent out to the board prematurely. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, and I could dig into that a little bit more. So we had a staff change. So Jeff Levy, who was our senior planner on a term limited position for the comprehensive plan, he resigned. He was liaising with the ADB, but was not in attendance. I did not know that the agenda memo included a draft community design element. He had posted that prior to his departure, and I did not. I was not aware of that. I did not review that or edit that version that went out to the public and to the ADB, and I would not have authorized its release. So it is being substantially changed. And it was, and I should say, for those watching and for those of interest, is that particular element was called urban design and community culture, I believe. We are proposing a pretty significant pivot to operationalizing a process that will create neighborhood plans, for lack of a better, that's a very generalized term. What we're calling neighborhood area framework. So it's basically an urban design framework that will allow us to work at a neighborhood level to develop land use, design, and public realm recommendations that would get into capital improvement plans on sequence over 5-year cycles. So we're not really talking about that today, but I just want to say it's kind of an exciting shift in our approach to make sure that design really is at the forefront and that we're operationalizing it. And so this is a new approach, but it was not at the ADB. The liaison on that particular day was not aware of the element or the changes. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Susan. Vivian, any other questions?
No, but as Susan was talking, I was just thinking about how the sub area kind of concept taken to the extreme, I think, is a positive. When you start touching everything from stormwater and tree code and everything, if you could do that at the sub area level, I think it always ends up making so much more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it'll be an intriguing discussion when we get to that to council. So I look forward to that.
Great. Well, thank you again, Susan.
Yeah. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for doing it.
Chief Bennett, welcome. Thank you for being here today to give an update on the CEMP.
I do. Sorry, I'm on vacation in Connecticut. It's lovely here, but happy to be here joining everyone. The Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan has review sent out to all of the department directors. We have heard back from Jessica and got her response. We heard back from Angie Fezer with her response or edits. So some of them are minor edits, some are most are fairly minor. What's happening is once all of the department directors have reviewed the draft comprehensive emergency management plan, it will get sent back to me and then back to our consultant, who will fix any of the kind of smaller things that the directors have identified. So I'm not sure if Rob English is going to be the one submitting his feedback from Oscar, who's not with us any longer. And then Kim, if she's going to be submitting feedback for Turley, because he's not there. So I need to talk to the mayor, make sure those are the two people that will be reviewing the CEMP for their departments. And then Susan and Todd are, I think, both working on their edits. It's extended until next week. We have to get this done soon because our contract with these contractors ends, I believe, at the end of July. Jessica, can you confirm that if it's the end of July or it's the end of August? I wish it was the end of August.
I actually do believe it is the end of August, but I can double check that for you.
Yes. So if it's the end of August, that's fantastic.
Chief Bennett, planning development's done with their review. We completed the little sign-off sheet, so we're good too.
Oh, good. Awesome. Thank you so much. I've been out, so I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. So thank you. So once the other players have their part done, it'll be sent back to Gail Harris, who is one of our consultants. Siri is another one of our consultants. They have two different consultant companies. Siri's mother died today, so she's going to be out for a bit dealing with the aftermath of that. So Jessica, I need to ask you, which is a request actually from Gail and Siri, if some of Siri's allotted time can be moved over to Gail, because Gail's going to be the one that needs to complete this. I don't know if it works.
Their contracts are individual, so it just depends on how much they have in each of their contracts. So
I think there was only $400 or so left in Gail's, and Siri had quite a bit more. So that was
the contract would just need to be amended. I believe it is within the mayor's scope to be able to. But you and I can speak about that.
Okay, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so that's the comprehensive emergency management plan. Hopefully all of the edits should be in by next week, or the review process. Then it will go back to Gail, who will provide all the edits within the document. Then it has to go to the state, and they have to review and approve the plan, which shouldn't be an issue. Once that's approved, it goes back, and then it'll come on the council agenda. So I'm hoping for it to come on the agenda in August, worst case scenario, September. So the council will be able to review and approve the updated comprehensive emergency management plan. The hazardous mitigation plan is the plan that we're concerned with, where if we don't have a current plan signed off, then we would not be eligible for full cost recovery for any type of disaster. We'd only be eligible for what the initial costs were. So the hazardous mitigation plan, we were able to talk with the Department of Emergency Management for Snohomish County as we were removing ourselves from our contract with them. I think it was $59,000 a year or so. And they sent us, they agreed to and sent us a letter asking us to sign on to their hazard mitigation plan, which is wonderful for us because it checks those boxes. So we sent our letter of intent to them that, yes, we'll sign on to your hazardous mitigation for FEMA reimbursement should we have a natural disaster. And currently we have emergency management meetings that we've been trying to have once a month. We haven't had them because there really hasn't been anything to update or report. We started those meetings when we were under the impression that there would still be an emergency manager, and that due to budget issues isn't going to happen. So we will have another emergency management meeting at the end of July just to give them an update on those who are interested in update on the hazard mitigation plan and the CEMP. But we might not have a lot of meetings after that unless necessary, just because there isn't, right now, we're sort of the, I guess, utility player trying to field all the things related to emergency management, even though it's not in our department right now, but we want to make sure the city is covered and that we have those things covered. The other thing we worked with Snohomish County for was to utilize their RAVE program, which is their communication system, which you can get texts or emails through that system. It's about $17,000 a year or so for the contract, and they're letting us go ahead and utilize that because the grant money we would have received had we had an emergency manager, which was one of the requirements, and we don't. So that money instead went to Snohomish County. It's like $24,000 or something. So really that money covers, I think, the hazard mitigation plan and the RAVE program, which we're both still allowed to have, which is fantastic. And there's a CERT member training coming up. That's your, citizens who learn how to do things related to any kind of emergency. That's through Snohomish County Fire. And our amateur radio operators, they have a meeting coming up, and I'm sending Commander Machado to that, because we're still trying to keep our feet, involved in this. I think someday, I hope someday, as the city's budget things come to resolve, that we can again have sort of an emergency management department that will be able to work with all of these different entities that want to work with the police department. So the fire department and CERT and amateur radio operators and other folks to continue to have emergency management meetings. So that is my update.
Well, thank you. Couple of questions. So this could be a more rookie question than anything. On the CEMP, does that include municipal court contributing to it?
I don't believe they were someone we sent it to, but we certainly could.
If it's of value, them being part of the city. I mean, please, I would love your advice if you don't think it's a gap in.
I don't know that the court would really be involved. It's more ICS or incident command structure, where you have logistics and you have security and you have rigging and shoring and things related to an emergency that would occur in the city for response for health and safety and structures and infrastructure. So I don't know how much the court would be involved, but there's no reason why they couldn't look at it. I mean, they're a part of our city.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we have all the departments involved, there might be some input there.
Yeah.
Jessica, I see that you took yourself off of,
yeah, I was just going to say, I would encourage the court to provide feedback, because they would have to address continuity of operations for the court. And, that is one of the pieces of dealing with, an emergency, and the EEOC. While they may not be involved in the EEOC being set up, they should still somehow be in the process and notification of what's happening with an emergency. So yes, if Gail and Suri have not sent it to the court, they probably should.
I don't believe they have, because I think the continuity of operations is a totally different SOP and general order. But I will look into this and make sure Gail signs off on that as well, since they're ready.
All right, thank you. It sounds like you're covering something you wouldn't normally do, and sounds like it's coming along. So I appreciate the extra work.
Yeah, no problem.
And then
Glad to do it.
I think my second thing was more a comment rather than a question, and I really appreciate the collaboration with the county on the hazardous plan, and then on the text solution. I really think that that's particularly great and will be a real asset for our city. Vivian, do you have any questions?
No, just the comment that I appreciate the time and effort that the police stepped in, and Chief specifically to fill those shoes and make sure that we have this moving forward. Obviously, it's a priority for the city, and whether or not we can designate a specific staff person, I think we all need to chip in any way we can, and certainly know that council members would be willing and able to be helpful if we're needed to. I'm volunteering myself.
this is recorded, right? So I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna utilize that information later.
You got it.
I heard it.
We have witnesses too.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for coming to speak with us on your PTO, on your vacation. Really, we're going to
course.
let you go now so that you can go back to having a good time.
I have a sunset cruise on a lake awaiting me. So here I go.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
So
It's
nice.
6:30 here.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the reorganization of administrative services. And thank you for Director Neil Hoyson for being here, Jessica, to speak to the changes that are being recommended for the finance director job description. Well,
Thank
to
you.
make it a finance director job description.
Yes. So the mayor had communicated to council that he was looking at doing a reorganization of the administrative services department with the departure of the administrative services director. His proposal is to change that department back to the finance department and have a finance director that is just focused on the financial aspects of the city. So the proposal would be to have IT, which actually has always been in the finance department, and clerk and records, which was previously moved into the finance department to make the admin services department. Those functions would actually report to the mayor, and finance would just focus specifically on finance. And, as you know, that is a key thing we're looking at right now. And so the mayor's proposal is to do our recruitment just for somebody who is specifically has the skill set related to the financial needs of the city. So what you are reviewing is the finance director job classification that was previously used for the finance director before it went to the administrative services director. We use that as the base. I researched other municipalities and pulled the most recent current applicable language for the job classification. It was reviewed by the mayor. It was also reviewed by our deputy director, and it was reviewed by Mike Bailey, who is part of the Blue Ribbon panel for the changes. So that is what is in front of you. There is no change to the compensation. It is the same range that all directors are compensated at the city, other than the chief of police, who is on a different pay scale, but all other directors are at the same range. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to field those.
We don't have any questions, and it's all very straightforward. I did agree with all the edits in the job description. To make a comment, being a hiring manager, which I've been over and over again over the decades, I think that this is really smart. Whenever you have a key opening like this, it's prudent from a business standpoint to relook at, take fresh eyes on reporting structure, bandwidth, everything that is in the purview of the responsibility of that position. So I really appreciate this and believe it'll make it easier to hire someone who's really super excellent at being a finance director and not having to have the other pieces. Vivian, do you have a question?
No, just the comment. I know that there had been a resident who had raised the question about whether or not using the current job description was a prerequisite for making this change. And basically, we're just, using. Actually, Director Neil Hoyson, if you want to explain what you said to me in the email, that would be great. I just want that answer to be out there for the public who may have been copied on that.
Sure, glad to address. Yeah, there is no code or law that says how we have to start with a job description. So the logic behind this was to use the most recently approved finance director job classification that council had approved. That, even though that job classification wasn't in use, it's actually an existing approved job classification. And, the mayor could have just moved forward with proposing moving back to that job classification, but we did update that with, best practices and current language. We are not using the admin services director job classification because that really does exist as a separate classification. It just will no longer be an approved hire So the ordinance that addresses what positions the mayor can hire into, that council now controls, the one that was created, that ordinance will be updated. The admin services director classification will be removed, and the finance director job classification will be added. So really, I know there were some concerns, but when you're starting with a job classification, what matters is it comes in front of council and council approves what's in front of them or doesn't approve what's in front of them and has questions about it. We really just felt the best place to start was from the most recent finance director job classification, rather than taking the admin services job classification and trying to rework that.
Well, thank you for addressing those concerns. And then the only other thing I had asked you about, and again, for the public record, for anybody who may have had that same impression looking at that big change in numbers, there was actually a whole change to the pay grade. So it wasn't that this is jumping 24 steps. It's so if you can.
That is correct. Yeah, the previous job classification for finance director was on a completely different salary schedule. So the number that's reflected on there isn't reflective of a change from a range 20 to a range 44. It truly is. All directors and all non-reps are on a completely different schedule that was in place at the time the last finance director job classification was being used. So that change in number is not reflective of an increase in compensation. As I said, the proposed pay range for it is the same as all of the other directors' pay ranges.
That was all I had.
All right, thank you. So I would like to make a motion to approve changing the administrative services director position to the finance director position, rather to move this to the consent agenda to approve changing the administrative services director to the finance director position and approve the finance director job classification.
I'm good with the consent. Yes.
Terrific.
For your information, we will have the update to the ordinance on the consent agenda at the same time so that council can address the new job classification and the update to the ordinance. Kim in the finance department will get that submitted.
That's super efficient. Love it.
Great.
Terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Next on our agenda is resolution to authorize mayor to approve shared leave beyond personnel policies. Jessica, I think that's you again.
Yeah. So the item in front of you, as you may be aware, we currently have a shared leave policy at the city. So what this does is it does allow employees to donate leave to other employees when they have themselves or a family member who are suffering from illness or injury, mental or physical conditions that would cause them to go into an unpaid status. When this happens, we reach out to the employees, let them know who needs it, and employees can choose to donate their leave to the other employee. There have been some situations that have come up recently where employees who were either, say, limited term employees or employees, so they hadn't accrued a lot of leave and they had a family emergency arise, or an employee who had a death in the family. As an example, they have a long-term relationship, have been in their marriage-like relationship for over 10 years, but are not married. A family member passed away. They could not take bereavement leave because they are not married. So there are these sort of one-off situations where they don't quite fit the definition. And we did have a director who wished to donate leave to those employees. And unfortunately, because the policy is written in such a way, it didn't fit the parameters of the shared leave policy. So what we're asking through the resolution is to give the mayor some additional latitude where when these one-off situations arise, where it does make sense, and we do have employees who want to donate, that the mayor could approve the ability to donate leave to another employee.
To me, this seems reasonable when I looked this all over. And I don't believe there's a cost associated to the city to make this switch.
There is not.
It's just a sheer donation
leave to each other. That is correct.
Taking it from one staff giving it to another. Question about the bereavement policy overall, to use that as an example. So are domestic partners a classified close enough family member to use bereavement?
They are, and I do also want to address one of the projects the HR department is working on this year is an update to the personnel policies manual. And we are going to be proposing changes to the shared leave program that will address this going forward. So the resolution is more of a stopgap measure because that is not going to be in front of council till probably early next year. We don't want to put it on the council agenda at the end of the year when everything is going on. So our plan is to have that more at the beginning of the year. But yes, domestic partnerships are recognized but the interesting thing in Washington state is when same-sex marriage became legal, domestic partnerships now only occur if, so there are no more domestic partnerships for opposite sex relationships. So unless one of the people is over 60. So that is the only way in Washington state you can create a domestic partnership. So if we have two people of opposite sex who are just chosen to live together in a marriage-like situation, but have chosen not to be married, it is neither a domestic partnership nor a marriage. So they're not covered legally under anything else. It's an interesting loophole that happened when Washington state made same-sex marriage legal. They got rid of domestic partnerships other than if one of the partners is over 60.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have no words right now.
Sometimes we do very interesting things in this state. And it creates some of these weird situations. So like this employee and their partner could not enter into a domestic partnership because neither of them is over 60.
Perhaps
Well,
the state needs to recircle to their loophole too.
yeah. Well, thank you for closing this one. I really appreciate it. And Vivian, I don't think you had a question, it looks like.
I don't, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with this going to consent if that's what you wanted to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be great if council is supportive of that.
Wonderful. Yeah, I will, if that's a motion, I will second to forward it to the consent agenda for the resolution to allow the mayor to approve shared leave for circumstances not currently covered in the personnel policies to full council. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you both.
We next have on the agenda new job description for permitting program manager.
Thank you very much. Leif Bjorback, building official, building division, which is a part of the planning and development department.
Thank you, Leif, for attending today. And hi, Emily. Thank you for being here as well.
Yeah, I'm here in case there are any HR related questions on this item, but Leif is going to lead it.
I may throw one your way when I finish here, Emily. So back in 2021, the building division recognized that we had need for a new job description to place an existing employee in, and the job description was created, and it was called permitting supervisor, and it basically was in response to our changing needs and dependence on technology and the changing face of the permitting processes and the permitting world. And so at the same time, we recognized an opportunity to maybe reorganize the building division slightly to add a true supervisor position, which would oversee the permit coordinator team. And just for reference, that has been and is currently a 3-person team, including the supervisor. And so we got that job description approved and implemented, and through the promotional process, we filled that new position with an existing staff person who's basically has a fairly unique set of skills that also to a degree played into the listing of essential functions and how we put the job description together. So, but once we gave the promotion and we're underway, the issue was raised that new position of supervisor was actually needing to perform non-supervisor or non-union, or actually there's a need to perform union work by the supervisor. And so we realized that we didn't want to be out of compliance, with union policies and city policies. So we recognized that we needed to kind of backtrack as far as those efforts. And so with our lean staff, we really couldn't give up that work or that portion of the work and still expect it to be done by the remaining two coordinators. And so we were faced with a dilemma. So what we decided was to, we talked to the union, and we decided that we wanted to revert the position back to a union position and into more of a lead position rather than a supervisor position. And so with the union's blessing through discussions at the time, they agreed to allow that person to do union activities as long as there was a good faith effort towards the creation of the desired job description within the union as a lead position. Any questions so far? I know that was a mouthful.
No, thank you, Leif. I'm tracking with you.
Okay.
Vivian, any questions?
Nope, I'm with you too.
And this is all spelled out pretty well in the history and the narrative in the agenda memo. So anyway, back within a couple of months of that realization, we collaborated with HR to start creating a new job description, that of permitting program manager, which was not a union covered, or which is a union covered position. And so several individuals have taken part in recrafting the previous job description to make it fit a union type position and still meet our needs. So we've done that. The position has already been recognized under the current union contract. And so there's been some technicalities that have already fallen into place. And so our intent is to get approval for this new job description and move that individual staff person back into this new position. And so functionally for our work team, it's not going to be a whole lot different. It's a matter of removing true supervisor functionality for hiring, firing, doing job evaluations, those type of things have been removed, among other things, and just revamped basically to still fit our needs and comply with the union and the city requirements. I think I mentioned that the job description is already recognized by the union. It's already posted on the city website. And so we're seeking council approval for the new job description. And then administratively, we will make the move of this individual into that position. You might be thinking about salary and cost impacts. And if so, I'm going to ask Emily or Jessica to address that.
Thank you, Leif. That was definitely one of my questions.
Are we referring to the pay grade listed on the job description?
The pay grade, yes.
Yeah. So during the union negotiations, when we negotiated this classification be added based on what Leif explained, we agreed with the union that it would be continue to be paid at the non-reps pay scale that the supervisor position was paid at in order to get it in place sooner. And then we would negotiate separately with the union at another time on an appropriate placement on the AFSCME schedule that will likely take place in the upcoming negotiations with AFSCME. This is something we've done before with other positions that are moved from non-rep into the union, is to just maintain their placement in order to get the change in, finished sooner, and then kind of deal with the pay issue separately when there's a little bit more time.
That makes sense. Take action now, and then we can make sure that that is calibrated moving forward. I think, particularly for a small team, someone who sounds like they were a working supervisor, this seems like a reasonable request, and I don't have any questions or concerns. Vivian, do you have any?
No, I just want to congratulate, everybody who's been involved on the pivot. Sometimes we take action and find out that it wasn't exactly the right action, but I guess keeping it as it had been before wasn't a working solution either. So, you found your way to the right spot.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, good job.
Thank you.
I would add too that this would also, I will be in contact with Kim to make sure that the authorized position list is updated. This would remove the permitting supervisor from that list, and we would replace it with the permitting program manager.
I don't know if you were on the call a little bit earlier, but Jessica had said that there was going to be an update to that ordinance on the consent this coming week because of a different position. So
yeah, I did see that. So I'll try and get it on the same one.
Yeah, maybe we could do all of that stuff all at once. That'd be great.
All right, well, Leif, you explained that very well, and your write-up was excellent. And Emily, thank you so much for your work on this, and for you both being here today. I motion to forward this to the consent agenda to move forward with making the changes, creating the new job description for the permitting program manager. Vivian,
say yes.
All right, thank you. We are
Thank you very much.
Agenda. Thank you. Next on the agenda, and it appears to be our last item, is Council Rules of Procedure Sections 4 and 5, Consent Agenda and Council Meetings.
You know what, that's probably actually something I should be prepared for, but I was looking instead for my phone where I had sent an email today. Here we are.
And honestly, I was not able to look at email a little earlier. So if it was sent to me, I'm not sure I was able to take a peek.
Yeah, so just in terms of the overview on the council rules of procedure, we've basically just been trying to document how council does business. And that would be in contrast to making changes right now, which we tried early on, and it took a lot of time that we don't have. So this is really just trying to reflect what we are actually doing. The only thing that was in that email as any kind of a change that I was proposing based on my conversation with Scott Passy today is that section 4, consent agenda 4.1, where it says the mayor in consultation with the council president shall place matters on the consent agenda, which I have updated wording to propose for that, because really it's the council president is in charge of the agenda, and the way that's written makes it sound a little bit more like it's the mayor who's in charge of the agenda. So anyway, there was wording he had come up with that was just right, I think, and I wanted to propose that change. But I'm gonna keep listening while I run out of the room for a second and grab my phone, which I left in the other room, because it's easier for me to do that rather than switching in and off of Zoom on the same monitor while I'm here.
And while you do that, I'm going to read out loud your proposed language. I think the council president, in consultation with the mayor, shall place matters on the consent agenda.
So you got it.
versus,
Perfect.
yeah, which versus what is there now. So again, the council president in consultation with the mayor shall place matters on the consent agenda. I agree that is more appropriate and that is the process. And I don't have questions or concerns about what is being proposed overall, Vivian. To your point, it's what we're doing now, and it's just documenting that. Anything else around that you believe we should touch on in committee today?
Nope. If you're happy with that revision, I think we could just put it on consent as revised.
I agree, and think it's appropriate to send this for consent agenda.
Seconded and voted yes.
Thank you. Nothing is left in the way of committee business. And so Vivian, unless there's something else pertaining to these matters you would like to discuss, I believe we're adjourned.
No, thank you very much, Chair Eck. You did a great job.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. Take care. We are adjourned.